My name is Karen H. Widener. I'm 34, grew up in Northern Virginia, and now live in D.C. If you ask my family, I'm the quiet one, the dependable one, the daughter who answers a 3 a.m. call, loans money without making it awkward, and helps carry furniture into 3 different apartments because someone suddenly decides the lighting feels wrong. For years, I did not mind being that woman, the background player, the fixer, the calm voice, the one people remembered only when something broke. But there is a strange danger in always being underestimated. Eventually, people stop watching what they say around you. My younger sister Chloe had just bought a condo with help from our parents. And when I say help, I mean they practically handed her the down payment on a silver platter after she held one stable job for 3 months. My mother called it an investment in Chloe's future. Funny. When I started my business out of a basement with a borrowed laptop, they called it a risky phase. That risky phase now has 12 employees, government contracts, and 3 letters behind its name. But I never bring that up at family dinners. It has never been my style to beg people to notice what they should have seen on their own. Chloe's housewarming party was last Saturday. It was one of those awkward family events where everyone brings wine, pretends to love hummus, and compliments crown molding like it has a personality. I arrived a little late because traffic was terrible, not because I wanted attention. The moment I stepped inside, Chloe's boyfriend, Adrian Collins, looked me up and down like he was checking the price tag on clearance clothing. He smiled, leaned in for a fake cheek kiss, and said, "Oh, you made it. We were starting to wonder if you were crashing here now that Chloe's got a place." He laughed. Not like it was a joke, like it was an insult dressed up well enough for company. Chloe chuckled under her breath. My mother gave that tight little smile she used whenever she wanted to avoid responsibility. My father, always the diplomat when someone else was being disrespected, gave a nervous laugh. "Let it go, Adrian," Dad muttered. "You're making this awkward." But Adrian did not let it go. That was only the warm-up. He had the kind of arrogance that tries very hard to look effortless. He kept touching his watch, dropping names from New York, talking about restaurants, client meetings, brand strategy, and how humble beginnings are so important. Every word sounded polished, but underneath it, he was digging. Later, near the cheese board, he tilted his head at me and said, "I just think it's so inspiring that Chloe is working her way up and that you two are still close. Some people get weird when their siblings start doing better than them, but not you, Karen. You're just so chill about everything." I nodded, smiled, changed the subject. I always changed the subject. But Adrian was not finished. When we were gathered around the kitchen island, he leaned forward and asked, "So, what do you do again?" There was something in his tone, like he expected me to say I fix laptops behind a counter. I was about to answer when Chloe waved a hand. "Karen has some tech company thing. She's been doing it forever." "Right," Adrian said. "Startups are so cool. I've worked with a few through our firm, Cornerstone Solutions. We handle contracts for local businesses. It's wild how many small companies just don't know what they're doing." I blinked. "Cornerstone?" I asked carefully. He smiled like I had finally said something interesting. "Yeah, I'm an account strategist. Mostly brand partnerships. A lot of small fish, no offense. But it pays." Small fish. That was the moment I realized Adrian did not just think I was beneath him. He had no idea I owned the ocean he was swimming in. One of the largest contracts my company held was with Cornerstone Solutions. KHW Systems managed their data infrastructure, back-end automation, and compliance reporting. My signature was on every major platform report they submitted. But I said nothing. Not yet. I watched Adrian brag to my aunt about clients who could not afford proper systems. I watched Chloe beam every time he spoke, as if his arrogance made her more important. I watched my father sip his beer and stay silent because silence had always been cheaper than defending me. Then Adrian pulled out his phone to show someone his LinkedIn profile, bragging about a campaign I knew my team had rescued from collapse. Something in me went still. I opened my company dashboard, typed in Cornerstone, and scrolled through the subcontracting employees under the analytics wing. There he was. Adrian Collins, account strategist, non-renewal pending, reviewed by Karen H. Widener. Me. I stared at the screen for a moment. Then I smiled. Not cruelly, not loudly, just calmly. Because Adrian had no idea who I was, and neither did my family. I did not say anything that night. I slipped my phone back into my bag, gave the kind of polite smile people mistake for weakness, and let Adrian keep talking. He laughed at his own jokes. Chloe leaned against him like he was some prize she had won. My mother floated between guests with wine refills and forced cheer. My father stood near the kitchen doorway, smiling faintly every time Adrian said something that should have made him step in. He never did. I left a little early, while everyone was still gathered around Chloe's living room, laughing at one of her exaggerated stories about how difficult it had been to choose the right backsplash. I hugged my mother, nodded to Dad, told Chloe the place looked nice, and walked out before anyone could ask why I was leaving. On the drive home, I did not turn on music. The silence felt too full already. I kept hearing Adrian's voice. Some people get weird when their siblings start doing better than them. I kept seeing my father's nervous little smile. I kept remembering how many times I had been told to let things slide. Let the joke slide. Let Chloe's selfishness slide. Let Mom's guilt trip slide. Let Dad's silence slide. Let everyone else be comfortable while I swallowed one small humiliation after another. By the time I reached D.C., anger had not arrived yet. What I felt was older than anger, heavier. It was exhaustion, the kind that settles in your bones after years of being useful but unseen. Because Adrian was not the real problem. He was only a symptom. The real problem was my family. For years they treated me like background noise, useful when they needed something, invisible when they did not. When Chloe dropped out of a certificate program and panicked over private loans, who quietly helped her cover the payments so her credit would not suffer? Me. When Mom's car broke down while Dad was out of town, who drove 4 hours with a borrowed trailer and got it towed? Me. When Aunt Denise was in the hospital and everyone suddenly had work, who sat with her 3 nights in a row with crossword books and ginger tea? Me. Not once did anyone ask what that cost me. Not once did anyone say, "Karen, are you tired?" They assumed I was fine because I made sure things looked fine. They assumed I did not need help because I had already learned no one was coming. And maybe that was the cruelest part. Chloe received rescue after rescue and called it love. I survived without rescue, and they called it strength. The Monday after the housewarming, I walked into my office early. KHW Systems occupied the top floor of a renovated brick building near DuPont Circle. Nothing flashy. Glass conference rooms, exposed pipes, plants my assistant kept alive because I definitely could not, and a coffee machine that sounded like it was preparing for war. My team was already moving through the morning, engineers murmuring over dashboards, a project manager pacing with a headset, someone laughing near the printer. This was the life my family called a phase. I sat at my desk and opened my inbox. Near the top was a message from HR at Cornerstone Solutions requesting my formal review signature for a subcontracting employee. Adrian Collins. His file had been flagged for missed deadlines, client complaints, and communication delays. 2 campaign deliverables had gone out late. One client had requested a partial refund because Adrian had apparently promised reporting capabilities his team could not provide. I leaned back in my chair and stared at his name. The irony was so rich, it almost felt staged. I did not sign the review immediately. I bookmarked it and closed the file. Not because he deserved mercy, because I wanted to understand what I was really feeling before I touched anything that could change his life. Tuesday afternoon, my mother texted, "Chloe has a big interview Friday. Can you help her prep? She says you're good with that kind of thing. Proud of you too." I stared at the message. No hello, no how are you, no mention of the housewarming, just a request wrapped in a compliment, like sugar around a pill. I did not respond. Wednesday night, Chloe called. I let it ring twice before picking up. "Hey, Care," she said, using the nickname she only used when she wanted something. "You busy?" "Not really. So I have this Zoom interview coming up. It's for a SaaS sales role, and I need to sound more polished. You know, more legit." I closed my laptop slowly. "You want me to help you prepare?" "Yeah, just run me through some stuff, like objections, client pain points, whatever. You talk to tech people all day." "Do you actually want this job?" She laughed like the question was ridiculous. "It pays well. Dad said if I land it, they'll help me with the car." I sat up straighter. "What car?" "A Tesla," she said casually. "Not buying it. Just helping with the down payment, early birthday thing." For a second, I could not speak. When I needed my first car, Dad told me public transportation built character. "Karen," Chloe said, "you there?" "I'm here." "So can you help tomorrow?" I should have said no. Instead, I said yes. Not because I wanted to rescue her again, but because some part of me needed to see exactly how deep the imbalance went. Thursday night, we got on Zoom. Chloe sat in her condo, framed by expensive shelves and a candle burning behind her. She asked me how to make it sound like she understood KPIs. She asked whether she should say she was good with CRM systems, even though she did not really know what CRM meant. She asked if client success was basically just being likable. I watched her take notes like a student copying homework she had no intention of understanding. After the call, Mom texted again. "So proud of Chloe lately. She's really finding her stride. You girls are both doing so well. Family is proud." I did not reply. Friday, I checked Adrian's Cornerstone file again. Another note had been added. He had mishandled a cross-channel campaign, and the agency had credited the client $5,000 to keep them from walking. He had not mentioned that at the party. Of course he had not. I still did not touch the file. The final straw came Saturday. My parents invited me over for lunch. After dodging messages all week, I decided to go. Not because I expected an apology, but because I wanted to stop hiding from the shape of my own family. The moment I walked inside, I smelled my mother's lemon cake baking, the dry one she made whenever she wanted the house to feel warmer than it was. Chloe was already on the couch, sipping kombucha like champagne. Adrian was beside her. I froze in the hallway. He looked up and grinned. "Look who finally showed up. Guess you can afford gas money." My father chuckled from the kitchen. "Adrian, come on." Adrian raised both hands. "I'm kidding. You know I'm joking, right, Karen? I'm not trying to start a class war." I smiled and sat down across from him. This time, I did not change the subject. Lunch started with everyone pretending the room was normal. Mom moved around the kitchen with the stiff cheer of someone trying to control the temperature of a storm. Dad kept checking the oven, like the lemon cake required military supervision. Chloe sat beside Adrian on the couch, looking pleased with herself. One bare foot tucked under her leg, her new condo keys still hanging from a designer keychain on the coffee table, even though she was not at her condo. Adrian launched into a story about some influencer client he was hand-holding through a rebrand. He spoke loudly enough for the whole room to hear, pausing whenever he thought someone should laugh. Chloe laughed every time. Mom placed a plate of dry cake in front of me like it was a peace offering. Then Adrian reached into his bag and pulled out his laptop. "Actually, Karen," he said, smiling in that polished way I was starting to hate, "this is hilarious. I think one of your little campaigns came across my desk this week. Some tiny firm called KHW Systems." Chloe looked at me. "That's you, right?" I set my fork down. "That's mine." Adrian blinked. "Wait, seriously? You work there?" "I own it." For the first time since I had met him, Adrian stopped talking. Only for a second, but it was enough. "Oh," he said. "Huh. I guess I didn't connect the dots." "Most people don't," I replied. Chloe leaned forward, frowning. "Wait, but you don't own it, right?" I looked at her. "I started it 10 years ago." Mom clapped her hands together, desperate for the moment to become cheerful. "See? That's why I always say we're proud of both our girls. Everyone is doing so well. Both our girls." The phrase landed like a small stone in my chest. Chloe, who needed help buying a condo and preparing for interviews. Me, who had built a company from nothing. In my mother's mouth, somehow, we were the same. Adrian recovered quickly. Men like him always did. "Well, small world," he said, opening his laptop. "We've actually been reviewing some of your systems. There's been some redundancy on the back end, just so you know." I raised an eyebrow. "Redundancy?" "Yeah," he said, warming up again. "Your cloud stack isn't optimized for cross-platform CRM integration. We flagged it." Chloe let out a low whistle. "Karen, are you going to let him come for your company like that?" Dad gave a nervous laugh. "Let's not turn lunch into a boardroom." But I was done letting things slide. I reached into my bag, took out my phone, opened the dashboard app, and turned the screen toward Adrian. His name was right there. Adrian Collins, account strategist, performance review pending, non-renewal recommendation awaiting executive approval. Read by Karen H. Widener. He stared at the screen like it had grown teeth. The confidence drained from his face, slowly, almost beautifully. His mouth opened, then closed. Chloe leaned over, saw the screen, and went still. "That's hilarious," Adrian said finally, giving a sharp, fake laugh. "Where did you even get that?" I did not answer. I did not need to. Chloe's voice came out smaller. "Is that real?" I sat back and took a slow sip of water. Dad cleared his throat. Mom suddenly became very interested in cutting the lemon cake into smaller pieces. Adrian shut his laptop and shoved it into his bag, all his smoothness gone. The silence was not loud. It was worse. It was honest. I finished my cake, stood up, and said, "I have work to do." No one stopped me. On the drive home, I expected satisfaction. I thought I would feel powerful, maybe even vindicated. Instead, I felt hollow. Because what stayed with me was not Adrian's face. It was my father's. He had not looked proud. He had not looked shocked that Adrian had been insulting me for weeks. He looked disappointed in me for making things uncomfortable. That was what cracked something open. Even when I proved I was not small, they still wanted me quiet. The next morning, I opened Adrian's file again. My cursor hovered over the approval button for the non-renewal. I could have ended it right there. I did not. I clicked Defer Review. Not because he deserved protection, he did not, but because I refused to become the villain in the story my family had already written about me. I did not need to destroy Adrian. I needed space, but space did not come. Monday morning, Mom called. No greeting. I talked to Chloe, she said tightly. She said you embarrassed Adrian. I stared at the wall of my office. Did she mention what he said to me? Mom sighed. Karen, you know how he is. He jokes. We just want peace. Peace. There it was again. I've been peaceful my whole life, I said. Where did that get me? She went quiet. Then she said, I hope you apologize before this becomes a thing. I hung up. That week, I buried myself in work. I skipped Sunday dinner for the first time in years. No one asked if I was okay. No one asked what had finally made me pull away. Then an old friend texted me. Kayla. We had built the earliest version of KHW systems together in a converted basement in Alexandria, back when my office chair had one broken wheel and our biggest client paid us in installments. Her message said, Heard you're still saving the tech world one over-engineered platform at a time. Coffee? 2 days later, we met in a half-empty cafe over burnt espresso and stale croissants. She studied my face for 5 seconds and said, You look like someone who just realized her family has been using her as free emotional labor. I laughed. Then, somehow, I told her everything. When I finished, Kayla leaned back. Karen, she said, you've spent so long being useful that you forgot you're allowed to just be a person. I looked down at my coffee. You're allowed to be angry, she continued. And you're allowed to stop saving people who keep pushing you underwater. That night, I went home and opened an old notebook I had not touched in years. Inside was a half-finished idea for a mentorship platform called PulseBridge. For the first time in a long time, I wanted to build something that was only mine. Over the next few weeks, I worked on PulseBridge at night and on weekends. There were no client demands, no family emergencies, no one asking me to clean up a mess they had made. Just me, a quiet apartment, a glowing laptop screen, and an old idea that suddenly felt alive again. PulseBridge was simple in theory, a mentorship platform for people in high-pressure jobs who needed real-time, anonymous peer coaching. Not corporate slogans, not fake wellness webinars, real people helping each other through burnout, bad managers, impossible deadlines, career pivots, and the quiet panic that comes when everyone thinks you are fine. Maybe I built it because I needed it. Kayla helped test the beta. She roasted my interface until I fixed it, challenged every weak feature, and reminded me to eat when I forgot meals. For the first time in years, I felt like I was building something that did not exist to rescue someone else. Then, after 3 weeks of silence, my mother texted, Can you come by Sunday? We're doing family brunch. We miss you. No apology, no acknowledgement. Just an invitation dressed like a summons. I almost ignored it. But curiosity is a dangerous thing, and I wanted to know what they wanted this time. So I replied, Sure, I'll bring muffins. Sunday morning was bright, almost insultingly peaceful. I drove to my parents' house with a box of blueberry muffins on the passenger seat, and the uneasy feeling that I was walking into another negotiation I had not agreed to. The first thing I noticed was that Chloe's car was not in the driveway. Neither was Adrian's. Inside, Mom was setting the table with forced cheer. Dad stood by the coffee machine, avoiding eye contact. Where's Chloe? I asked. Mom's smile tightened. She and Adrian are taking a break. Since when? She waved a hand. It's complicated. There it was. The real reason. I sat down, accepted coffee, and waited. Dad cleared his throat halfway through a conversation about a neighbor's dog. Your sister's had a rough couple of weeks. I took a bite of muffin. What kind of rough? Mom folded her hands. The interview didn't go well, and with Adrian pulling away, she's been struggling. Dad added, She mentioned you were working on new projects. Big ones. Sounds like things are going well for you. I looked between them. Is this the part where you ask if I'm hiring? They exchanged a glance. Mom smiled in that hopeful, careful way that always came before a request. We just thought it would mean a lot if you could give her a chance. A chance, I repeated. Something entry-level, Dad said. Let her assist. Help her get back on her feet. After everything, after the housewarming, after the humiliation, after being told to apologize for defending myself, they still wanted me to rescue Chloe. I leaned back. What happened at Cornerstone? Neither of them answered right away. But I already knew enough. Adrian's review had been deferred, but the damage around him had continued. Chloe's own job search had stalled. Her sales interview fell apart because she could not explain half the words on her resume. Adrian, from what I heard through the client network, had become cold after learning exactly who I was. The fantasy was cracking, and now they wanted me to hold the pieces together. Mom softened her voice. She's trying, Karen. She just needs someone to believe in her. I let the silence stretch. Then I nodded. Okay, I said. Tell her to send me her resume. Mom's face lit up. Dad looked relieved. They thought I had come back to my assigned role. That night, Chloe emailed me her resume. It was almost impressive in its dishonesty. 2 pages of inflated buzzwords, fake leadership language, and achievements she had only watched other people complete. She listed strategic client development for a campaign where she had barely sat in the meeting. She claimed advanced CRM skills after asking me what CRM meant less than a month earlier. I did not delete it. I forwarded it to Kayla. Then I called her. I need a strange favor, I said. Kayla listened, then laughed softly. You're not asking me to fake a job offer, are you? No, I said. A real opportunity, real terms, real pressure. I just want to see what she does when no one is holding her hand. Kayla went quiet for a moment. Then she said, So you're giving her rope. I'm showing her the edge, I said. Whether she trips or jumps is up to her. Through PulseBridge, we had been building a pilot program that simulated high-pressure startup environments for applicants and contractors. It was transparent in the terms, opt-in, legal, and designed to measure communication, adaptability, ethics, and follow-through. Chloe would never read the terms. She never did. A week later, under a recruiter profile Kayla used for the pilot, Chloe accepted a 10-day contract trial with what she believed was a fast-scaling tech startup. She bragged in the family group chat before the first day even started. Big opportunity. Startup energy, real capital. Mom sent prayer hands. Dad wrote, Proud of you. I wrote nothing. By day 3, Chloe was complaining that they expected too many updates. By day 6, she skipped 2 assignments and blamed unclear instructions. By day 8, she tried to take credit for a workflow someone else had built. By day 10, the report was complete. Poor preparation, low accountability, inflated experience, defensive communication. Kayla sent me the file with one message. You sure you want to do this? I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I thought of Adrian smirking in Chloe's condo. I thought of my father telling me to let it slide. I thought of my mother asking me to apologize for finally being visible. And I replied, Yes, the week everything came together, I barely had to do anything. Chloe did most of it herself. She had been hyping up the opportunity in the family group chat for days, dropping words she barely understood and acting like she had been discovered by some elite tech circle. Fast growth, founder mindset, strategic sales, disruptive platform. Every message sounded like it had been copied from a LinkedIn post written by someone who owned too many blazers. Mom responded with heart emojis and prayer hands. Dad wrote, "That's my girl." I watched the messages come in and said nothing. It was surreal, watching my family celebrate Chloe for walking into a test she had not prepared for, while never once asking why I was quiet. But that was the pattern, wasn't it? Chloe moved, they cheered. I built, they shrugged. By the 10th day, the pilot report was finished. Kayla sent it to me late that night, and I read it alone at my kitchen table while rain tapped against the windows. The report was clinical, objective, and brutal. Chloe had missed 2 deadlines. She had asked for clarification, then ignored the clarification. She had exaggerated prior experience in 3 separate communications. She had blamed team members for tasks she failed to complete. Worst of all, she had tried to privately message another applicant and ask for their notes because, in her words, the whole thing is basically fake anyway. I read that line twice. The whole thing is basically fake anyway. That was Chloe. If something required effort, it was unfair. If something exposed her, it was fake. If someone stopped catching her, they were cruel. Kayla called while I was still reading. "You okay?" she asked. "I don't know." "You don't have to use it." "I know." There was a pause. Then she said, "Karen, whatever happens next, make sure you're doing it for yourself, not for the version of them you still wish existed." That sentence stayed with me, because there was still a small, embarrassing part of me that wanted my parents to see the report and finally understand. To say, "Karen, we were wrong. We asked too much of you. We protected Chloe so often we forgot to protect you." But people who benefit from your silence rarely thank you for finding your voice. The opportunity came that Sunday. Mom insisted on a family brunch at a little diner they liked in Arlington. White tablecloths, fake flowers in mason jars, pastel chalkboard menu. The kind of place that pretended to be charming while charging $19 for eggs. I arrived 5 minutes early. They arrived 20 minutes late. Chloe walked in first, sunglasses on even though we were indoors, her mouth tight, her phone clutched like a weapon. Dad followed behind her, stiff and silent. Mom hugged me too long, like guilt was something she could press into my shoulders. We sat down. For the first few minutes, everyone performed normal. Mom talked about the weather. Dad complained about parking. Chloe stabbed at her fruit cup and refused to look at me. Then Mom folded her hands. "I know things have been tense," she said carefully, "but we're still family, and that means something." I sipped my coffee. Chloe let out a bitter laugh. "Does it? Because Karen has been acting like she's too good for everyone." I looked at her. "Is that what you think?" She leaned back. "You embarrassed Adrian. You made me look stupid. Then you acted like helping me was some huge burden. I get it, okay? You're successful. Congratulations. But don't act like you've never struggled." I stared at her for a long moment. Then I reached into my bag and pulled out a black folder. I placed it on the table and slid it toward her. "What's this?" Chloe asked. "Your opportunity." She frowned and opened it. Her expression changed slowly. Confusion first, then irritation, then fear. Mom leaned closer. "What is that?" "The 10-day pilot Chloe just completed," I said. "Every assignment, every missed deadline, every message, every excuse, documented." Chloe's face went pale. "How did you get this?" "I commissioned it." The table went silent. Dad's eyes narrowed. What does that mean? I placed my hands around my coffee mug and kept my voice calm. Pulsebridge is mine. The program she joined was part of my platform's contractor assessment pilot. Real opportunity, real terms, real evaluation. She agreed to all of it. Chloe stared at me like I had slapped her. You set me up. No, I said. I gave you exactly what Mom and Dad asked me to give you. A chance. Mom's mouth opened, then closed. I turned to her. You said she just needed someone to believe in her. So I did. I gave her a place where no one knew her last name, no one cared that she was your favorite, and no one was there to smooth things over. Chloe shoved the folder away. This is insane. You wanted me to fail. No, I said. You failed because for the first time, no one patted the floor before you fell. Dad's face hardened. Karen, that's enough. I laughed once, softly. There it was again. Enough. Not when Adrian mocked me, not when Chloe used me, not when Mom asked me to apologize for being humiliated. Only now. Only when I stopped making the truth comfortable. No, Dad, I said. It's finally enough. Mom's eyes were shining. This is cruel. I looked at her, and for once, I did not soften my voice. What's cruel is raising one daughter to believe the world owes her rescue, and the other to believe love means exhaustion. What's cruel is watching me carry this family for years and still acting like I'm the problem when I finally put something down. Chloe whispered, You think you're better than me. No, I said. I think I'm done being smaller so you can feel bigger. No one spoke. The waitress appeared with our food, sensed the tension, and quietly backed away. I stood. Mom reached for my hand. Karen, please. Don't leave like this. I looked down at her hand, then at her face. For years, I waited for one of you to see me without needing something from me. I'm not waiting anymore. Then I picked up my bag and walked out. No one followed. That was 6 months ago. Since then, I have cut contact with my family. Not out of spite, out of survival. The silence after leaving them was strange at first. Too wide. Too clean. I kept expecting guilt to walk through the door and sit beside me. But it never stayed long. Pulsebridge officially launched last month and landed its first institutional partnership. Kayla is now my co-founder. We have 5 full-time staff, a growing waitlist, and messages from users who say the platform helped them feel less alone in jobs that were slowly crushing them. For the first time in my life, I am building something that gives back without taking pieces of me with it. Chloe moved back in with my parents. Last I heard, she was exploring crypto, wellness coaching, and luxury candle dropshipping, all in the same month. I wish her clarity. I really do. Adrian lost his position after Cornerstone declined his renewal. Apparently, charm does not survive long when people start reading the actual performance reports. Sometimes, late at night, I think about texting my mother. Not because I want to go back, but because grief has strange habits. It remembers the good moments, even when the bad ones nearly buried you. Then I remember that peace is not always a warm family table. Sometimes peace is a locked door, a quiet phone, a life where no one laughs at your pain and calls it a joke. I spent years waiting for them to finally see me. Now I understand. I never needed them to see me. I just needed to stop disappearing. Because some bridges are not burned out of anger. They are torched to light the road forward.